In this tutorial, we're going to talk about nominal versus real GDP and how we use real GDP to differentiate changes in price and changes in quantity of economic activity happening in an economy. If we measure nominal GDP, we calculate GDP using the current prices or the prices of the year that we're referencing. So if we were to use the expenditure method to measure GDP, we would measure expenditures in the relevant year, whether that's 1978 or 2020. If we take a look at nominal GDP in the United States since 1960, what we see is generally an increase in the market value of all final goods and services produced in a year in the economy. Now, we don't know, have prices risen? What about the quantity of economic activity? So to answer that question, what we're going to do is calculate real GDP. So when we calculate nominal GDP, we calculate GDP using current prices. When we calculate real GDP, we fix the price at a base year. We choose a base year, and this base year is somewhat arbitrary. We recalculate GDP using the expenditure method in all years, and that's our real GDP series. So let's take a look at what we have in the United States since 1960. This line here is nominal GDP. This line here is real GDP. What we see is that we have seen an increase in real GDP in the United States, just not as much as is reflected in nominal. That suggests both price and quantity have risen. Real GDP is our measure of quantity. Now, what if we wanted to talk about what's happened to price? What we'll do is we will find the GDP deflator. The GDP deflator is found by taking our nominal GDP, the GDP measured in current prices, and dividing by real GDP and multiplying by 100. We interpret the value of the GDP deflator as 100 plus the percent difference in price level compared to the base year. So let's take a look at the United States. Here's the GDP deflator since 1960. If we're looking at, say, this point right here, we have a GDP deflator value of 60. That means that prices are 40% lower than the base year. In the base year, our GDP deflator value should be 100. And that happens in the year 2012. My last observation here, this is approximately 120. That means in this last observation, prices of goods included in GDP were about 20% higher than the base year.